So I'm excited to welcome you onto today's call. Those of you who've been joining a number of these sessions will know that Suky has been putting questions to other recruiting experts and recruitment leaders, trying to uncover, ideas, tips, and insights that you can use in your own recruitment business or in your own recruitment career. But what we've done today is turn the tables, because many of you will know that Suky has published a book within the last few weeks, and that has immediately gone to bestseller status on Amazon in quite a number of different categories. And so we said, well, Suky, why don't we, instead of having you be the one to ask the questions today, why don't we instead ask you a whole load of questions about the launch of the book and all the kinds of ideas that has got you to bring together. So Suky, thanks so much for flipping things over today, and it's great to have you on.
Thank you. I do have that little post-it note here reminding me that you're in charge today. So I will try not to take over.
Very good, very good. So, I mean, why don't we start there, Suky? You've had so much going on, I know, over the last couple of years, running a recruitment business yourself, then rapidly building a recruitment coaching business as well. So how on earth did it come to pass that you came to write a book and to put all of the ideas that you've got on paper or in writing? How did that come about?
It's really interesting, because part of it is I had to practice what I preach, right? Writing a book, wasn't on my radar at all. It really wasn't. But a couple of different things happened. I had a lot of people asking me, well, why haven't you put your knowledge into a book? And like probably every other author out there, I thought, what have I got to say, right? What have I got to say of value? But at the same time, as the conversations kept happening, I found a massive resistance, like internal resistance, right? Oh God, no, I can't put anything out there. What if I don't write correctly? What if I don't know how to do it? All of that type of stuff started happening. And one of the New Year's resolutions I made this year was I was going to get out of my own comfort zone, right? And I was going to take it to the next level. So I actually, Christmas, just after Christmas this year, I actually just paid my editor $12,000 and thought, I'm going to do this now. I have to do it, and I had somebody to hold me accountable. So in so many different ways, it wasn't one particular thing. But January, I just decided, put my money where my mouth is, get myself an editor, get myself to hold me accountable, because I knew I was resistant to it, right? Resistant to putting the book out there, the growth, the what if nobody buys it? What if nobody wants it? What if I get a troll? All of that stuff. And then it's funny, because when I actually did start writing the book, and my editor said, well, who's going to write the foreword and intro? Well, I had a complete meltdown there, because I was like, well, who's going to write that? Who would I get to write that? And I ended up speaking with Janelle Adecco here in Canada and Marcia Drake International. I had huge anxiety about even asking them. It's like, why would they take the time? So a lot of people think that I wake up every day and I'm just able to execute. No, I have some of the same fears, concerns, like everybody else. So I'm glad to say I done it. It launched, and as you said, bestseller internationally in 4 countries. In fact, all 4 countries that we launched in.
Wonderful. And for those who don't know the book, it's all about how to launch a successful recruitment agency.
Yep.
So that's
how to launch a staffing agency. Yeah. Pretty simple, right?
That's what we're going to try and uncover. So, I mean, today's call, we've got people on the call who are recruitment consultants who perhaps haven't launched a recruitment business yet. We've got some recruitment agency owners on the call, some corporate recruiters as well. So we're going to try and cover some questions that will be of benefit to all those different audiences. But For those people, Suky, who are on the call and are thinking of starting up a recruitment business for themselves, but they haven't done that yet, what are some of the things that you would encourage them to be thinking about, and what are some of the things that they ought to have decided upon before they, actually embark on that path?
I actually have a chapter in the book called Protecting Your Dream. And a lot of people think, I'm going to start an agency and, who's my client, who's this, who's that? And they're all absolutely 100% critical things you need to think of. And on our rec to rec side, we see this quite a bit as well. Sometimes people think they want to be an entrepreneur, but in reality, that's not what they are. They're an entrepreneur, right? So they're an implementer. So if you are thinking you want to launch your agency, so one of the first things I would encourage you to think about is, why are you doing that? What is that why? Because some of us are driven. We are driven and we want to break things, put them together, disrupt things, all of that kind of amazing stuff. There's others that love that, but they don't want that risk level that gets associated with it, but they do want to be part of that journey. That's where their entrepreneur piece and intrapreneur piece differs. Some people I call it an entrepreneur, other people call them integrators, right? So I would really strongly suggest people look at it and say, which of those two roles do I want? And the second part of that is, how do you protect your dreams? Because we all have that granny at Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, who's always going to be questioning you, when are you going to get a real job, or why are you leaving a job where you're getting X income every month? Why are you taking the risk? So one of the things I would definitely encourage anybody thinking of starting out is really think about that one, because the last thing you want to happen is you go out on your own, you start up, it's tough. Like, hey, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? It's tough. But the last thing you then need is a personal network that's not really supporting you. So I know a lot of people are looking for me to say, oh, well, here's the thing from a business perspective. But what I see a lot of businesses failing, or recruiters who've gone out on their own, give up even before they've started, because they really didn't think these seemingly small bits through right at the beginning. And then if you are that entrepreneur and you know how you're going to protect your dream, you've got all of that, then you've got to look at it and say, what am I bringing to market? What is it that I'm going to do that my competitors can't do? And a lot of people say, yeah, but I'm going to give a better level of service. Okay, that's what everybody says. So I really would encourage people, if first of all, are you really an entrepreneur? Or do you need to be an implementer in another entrepreneur's business? How are you going to protect your dream from those well-meaning family, friends, and people like that? And secondly, what's your why from your client's perspective? Why should they use you? And I could go on, you know me, right? I could go on this one, but I hope that answers your question.
No, that's a great response. And actually, I guess recruitment businesses are not that different to any other business, that, you are going to hit obstacles. There are going to be points on the journey where, you're taking some hits or you're feeling down. And why is it that you're building this business? That's what's going to power you through. So,
But what I would also add to that, Tony, is our business is like no other. Okay. And I know everybody says, oh, but business is business. Yeah, the fundamentals. But we always work in the gray area. And anybody that's already in the industry knows that. It's rarely black and white. And and the pandemic, for a start, has really highlighted that, because when you are in that situation and people's personal lives are changing and it's impacting their decisions or ability to hire and things like that, has that massive knock-on effect to us. We can't force somebody to take a job. We can't force a company to make a hire, right? So it's all of those types of things that make what we do, I'm going to say, even more unique and difficult.
Absolutely.
Right?
If we stick with the startup theme, Suky, and let's imagine that hypothetically you were going to invest in a whole load of different recruitment businesses and you were looking to invest in startups, what would be the things that would get you excited about investing in one startup business over another? What are the things that really would make you think, yes, this is a winner?
I'm smiling because you said hypothetically. Now, that's one thing I've learned this year. Never say never. So it is something I may well decide to do at some stage. But to answer your question, what is it that I'm looking for? I want to be clear here. I'm looking for the entrepreneur's sales mindset. Now, people think, oh yes, but we're all sales, right? And we're all yes, I've got a sales mindset. No, let me just peel that layer back a little bit more. Those smile and dial, throw crap at the wall type sales methodologies are dead, right? Nobody, and no, actually, let me rephrase that. But maybe they're not dead, but that's not what clients want. That's not what customers want. So one of the things I would definitely look at is, do they have the sales mindset coupled with that demonstrating value? Because when you put the two together, the invoice is going to look after itself. So it's that mindset. Is it cracking the whip and just making people do another 100 calls? I was trained like that. I know that was how it was originally done, but that's not what clients want. That's not what people want these days. And the other thing I would look for is, have they really got a growth mindset? Now, you would think that, again, everyone that's starting their business would have a growth mindset. On my coaching side, I see how many people start off and they have X amount of available cash, and then they start clinging on to that just when they're meant to, when they need to invest that money. So they had that scarcity mindset comes in. Now, don't get me wrong, there's times where we all have scarcity mindset, right? We all have that, but it's what we do about it. So to answer your question, I would look for that sales value added mindset. And I would look for that growth mindset as well. And the biggest one is that financial. And exactly like you said to me, hypothetically, I want someone to say, why wouldn't we? And then dismiss it, right? Then dismiss it, because then you've made an informed decision that it's not aligned with what you want to do. That's fine. But people that have a problem for every solution, they're not the people I'd invest in.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually the other piece, do they believe in paying rec to rec fees? That's a big, big tell. Because if you don't believe in paying rec to rec fees, that means you don't believe in the value of the of paying a third party for helping you with hiring. Well, if that's your mindset, that's how you're going to project it onto your clients. Right? So that's always a big tell for us, is how somebody handles that one.
Interesting. And in terms of recruitment backgrounds, how critical do you think it is that someone has done a stint in recruitment in order to be able to set up a recruitment business and make a success of that? Do you see people bringing in sector expertise from having pursued a career outside recruitment in another industry and making a real go of that? Or is having learned the ropes within a recruitment business already, is that critical? What's your take on that?
The general answer is no, it's not critical. However, I think there's tremendous value to having industry experts who have actually done the job, because they're able to better align and talk with the client and solution. Not all the time. Again, I said it's generalizing. So I think that definitely 100% has a lot of value to add. But to go with that And this is where I see those individuals make mistakes. They have this mindset, oh, but I know my industry. I know this. Yes, you know your industry as an accountant, as an engineer. You don't know your industry from that sales and talent acquisition perspective, even if you've hired people before. So that's where I think I see a lot of people get in their own way. They're trying to do recruitment with the mindset of their previous role. And especially when you're talking a technical role, they're trying to find a technical solution to a human problem. Now, don't get me wrong, technology is amazing. So to answer your question, I think it's actually a good idea as long as you're bridging that knowledge gap that you've got about how to run a recruitment agency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't go in blind. So get some external help. Talk to someone like yourself, in fact, to uncover what you
Just
don't know.
leave that ego or whatever you want to call it at the door. I've always had coaches, and I continue to. I've got mentors, and I continue to have mentors, because when you go and you have somebody to talk to, like if somebody had said to me 2 years ago I'd write this book, I would have said no way, because that was my limiting mindset at that time, or even actually this time last year for that matter. So so always get help.
One last question about starting up, and then we'll turn our attentions more to people who've got a business and how can they accelerate that and become more successful. But when you're thinking about startups again, what are the pros and cons that you see in going it alone versus starting up with perhaps a co-founder or a couple of co-founders? And when you think of all the businesses you've worked with and those you've advised, any pros and cons you would particularly draw attention to there?
Well, I personally have had both. And then as of my clients, I think let's go with the going it alone, right? You own everything. It's all your ideas. It's your vision. It's your dream. You are setting the pace for the business. You are setting the direction. Even if you've got external coaches, you are still the one that's making solely responsible for those decisions. So you're better able to control, for lack of a better word, which way the business goes. Now, there's also a downside to that, because your resources are going to be limited, your capital, for example. So that's where the partnership piece comes in, right? And dividing duties and things like that. Now, I recently have been coaching a company where they're equal partners. All the directors are equal partners, and certain people think they are doing a lot more than their counterparts, right? So, and that has happened, in my opinion, because when you go into partnership with somebody, the roles aren't defined clearly. That was a mistake I made in my business. I've owned this business, both businesses. I started PSI back in England in 1999, but when I moved here, I decided to bring a partner in, and that was the worst mistake I had ever made. Legally, I was protected, but as I just said, I just assumed that everybody had my energy, my pace, and the desire, right? So one of the things I would definitely recommend, if people are going to have a business partner, bring a partner into the business, you have to define the roles before you sign that piece of paper. Who's responsible for what? And a resolution as well. A resolution as well, and how they're going to hold each other accountable. So the reality is, I've seen some amazing businesses where people have equal shares, and it works really, really well. Equally, I've seen it crumble, like it did in my own experience as well. So there isn't a right or wrong. It's how are you setting it up? And I guess the bigger question becomes, do you want to be the sole decision maker? Because if really deep down you want to be the sole decision maker, then you've got your answer,
Mm.
right? Then you've got your answer. Go alone, even if it means you have to take out more capital, go and get a loan, do what you got to do. But you're in control. You're in 100% control. If that's you, then don't even think about bringing a business partner in, because that will constantly play on your mind. If you're going to go in with somebody else, clearly define the roles, the duties, resolution before you sign any paperwork, and make sure you have a shareholders agreement in place that either party can enact upon if they feel they need to.
Yes.
So yeah, not the answer you were looking for, because I don't think there is a right or a wrong. I've done
Mm.
both. Having a partner for me was wrong.
Yeah, I've done both myself as well, and I can see, yeah, goods and bads for
Mm.
both situations. So interesting.
Actually, thing I should add there is I started my business in 1999. I bought in the partner in 2005. Right? So it had its processes, and maybe I was stuck in my way. I don't know. But that's the other piece of what stage do you bring a partner in?
Mm. Interesting. Well, we've talked a lot about starting up a business and whether it's right for you and what backgrounds will help you thrive and so on and so forth. But a lot of people on the call and a lot of people watching the recording back of this will already have their recruitment business. It'll be at various stages of success already. But for those who want to scale and want to grow a business that they already have up and running, what are some of the things that you would recommend that people should really focus on to achieve that over, the course of the next years?
Okay, that's a great question, because one of the things that especially during COVID and now coming out the other side of the pandemic, people really don't have a strategy. They don't have a strategy that has been adapted to the current climate. I was having a conversation with a client the other day about cold calling and training the old way. That doesn't work. It's simply not working. There's a piece that's missing before that, right? It's that warming up that lead. So for those that are really looking to scale, look at your strategy, look at your sales strategy. Are you still trying to recruit? And beg your pardon, are you still trying to sell the way you were selling before the pandemic? A lot of people are saying, and when I ask them this question, no, we're not. But when you really dig deep and we start peeling back the layers, and I start asking the questions for potential coaching clients, you actually realize, no, it's still the same. They're still managing their people the same way. Well, how I'm managing my team today is completely different to how I managed them before the pandemic. So that's one area that you really got to look at. You got to look at your systems. The systems that got you here are not going to get you there. At some stage, those systems have to evolve. And let me give you another example. I just finished first it was 6 months, then it was 3-month engagement with a particular client. And the last group I was training, they had access to the best systems. Like that company has given them access to everything. You name it, they've got it. But there's no accountability. So people were not following the process, not following the systems, not even something as simple as the applicant tracking system, right? So if you want to scale, you got to look at those processes and look at your teams. How are you holding them accountable today? Because as you're trying to grow, the pressure's going to change. And if they're not held accountable today, you can't hold them accountable there.
Mm.
And the other piece is the people. If you really want to scale, those people in your team right now, they may have been phenomenal from a startup to here, can they get you from here to there? And the answer may be yes, answer may be no. Right? So the old saying, have you got the right people on the bus, right seat? If you really are going serious about scaling, you've got to look at the people you've got right now. Are they part of that journey? Is there a different role that they can do? If they're not, if they're part of the journey, but they're not the right person together, what else can they do? Because as your business grows, other roles are going to come up, right? Other roles are going to come up. And those that are not going to be able to grow with you, although actually those that don't want to grow with your business as well, they may have the skill set, but not really the desire to change. You've got to start thinking about letting them go now. Now, I don't mean go and fire everybody. That's not what I'm saying, right? There's a process to follow. And I'll finish that one with, you've got to train your people. If your people have got you from point A to D, and you want them to get you to Z or something, you need to give them the training to get there. And that's a mistake I see a lot of people make. They have this amazing vision and they work really hard to execute on it, but the team gets left behind. And then that just creates all these other problems, right? And we're in the people business. So we have enough problems without creating more problems for ourselves.
That dovetails really nicely with the next question I was going to ask, which is, let's imagine you've got recruitment business that's got, you know, good systems, good processes in place, and they're looking to accelerate growth over the course of the next few years. If you're going to advise them to invest in, I don't know, 4 or 5 areas of the business, what would be the kinds of things that you would be suggesting people look at, whether that's an area they need to invest in?
Okay, so, and these are in no particular order. I would get an external systems and process person to come in to look at, I think my systems in my business are great and they work. We're getting an external individual to come in and take a look at them. Are they really scalable, and what changes do we need to make? So that's one thing I would definitely recommend. I'd also, as we grow, and especially if you're in a niche vertical, because remember, you can't be everybody's everything. And you can't be the client, beg your pardon, you can't be supplying the companies and then taking from them at the same time. So theoretically, your market is going to tighten as you scale. Where is that revenue going to come from? Are you going to add in another geography? You're going to go to another location, which then has its own cost associated with that. But if you're perms, I'm telling you right now, you don't have to have an office in every location. I haven't. So you can do international, right? The other piece that tying on to that is you got to look at your margins, your charge rates, your fees. You can't still be chasing those accounts with low margins. Now, I know there is a counter argument to be made that when you have, let's just say, technology, you have Microsoft on your, as you know, you're able to boast Microsoft is your client, or the banks and things like that. Well, that's great, but those VMS type setups, you've got to have a completely separate strategy. You know, there's a lot of people out there that actually don't make profit from those. Right? So I would look at the fees, I would look at the clients, and I would look at it and say, who am I going to increase in price, fees? And I want to be careful here. If you're just increasing the fee and the service remains the same, that's not what I'm talking about here. And I would look at dumping some of those clients. I would seriously recommend dump those clients, which will free up resources to focus on the new niche and things like that. I've already talked about this one. You got to look at your internal training. You've got to look at your internal training and your social media brand. And I'm not talking the company's social media brand, because that is important. But we all now, every time a job comes in or you see something, where does everybody go? Go to LinkedIn to get their profile up, right? I was checking for recently, LinkedIn has 800 million users in 200 countries. So regardless of where people are watching this from, social media, LinkedIn in particular, the professional networking platform, is really pretty much the first place people go to. What are people seeing about your teams? Right? What's the brand your individuals are building? Because that's up to you as the employer to help guide them, right? And support that. Actually, one of the things I should have tied in with the service and fees, who is your real avatar? Who really is that ideal avatar? And the reason I say that is I talk to a lot of people that say, want to do accounting and finance, for example. Okay, that is massive. That's an elephant, right? And people go after anything that's accounting and finance because theoretically it sits under the same umbrella, right? But that's jack of all trades within accounting and finance. What sub-domain niche are you going to own in that? Now, you may say accounting and finance, and somebody over here is going to own tax, for argument's sake. Great. If that's your strategy, great. That person focuses on that. So really understand who your avatar is, because I see people, 1 minute they're working, and I'll just use Canada as an example. They're working in Toronto and suddenly they see a job posted in Regina, for argument's sake, and they jump all over that. Well, they don't have the network there. The market is really small. Why spend your energy there? Why would you spend it there when you can take that same energy and spend it maybe southwestern Ontario, for argument's sake? So it's really, who is my avatar? Size of the company, location, may even be number of employees. Now, I have clients that only like working with startups. They're in the tech, right? So they like working with startups. Fantastic. They've really narrowed it down. And then they go out and own that domain. And their marketing and their branding speaks to that domain. So yeah, so there's a couple of, I think I've given you more than 4 there. But definitely, just to recap, look at your dollars and cents. Low margin clients, get rid or upsell. Look at your true avatar. Who really is your avatar? Are your teams working on the same avatar as you have in your mind? Your social media and your internal training.
Fantastic, Liz. Thank you. And if we think about a business that has been heavily dependent on the founder, and that's where they're at today, what kind of timescale is it realistic to move that business to one where it's now a really saleable asset because the founder is no longer absolutely critical to the running of the business, or maybe just the business's founder wants to step back a little bit and have a more relaxed lifestyle? But what kind of timescale do you think is realistic to take a business from being totally dependent on the founder to them now being largely removed from being critical?
That's like saying how long's a piece of string, right? I think there's a couple of different things to consider here. The foundations of the business. I've seen people launch a business and kind of step out within 4 or 5 years because they want to go, at the very nature of an entrepreneur, they want to go and chase that squirrel over there, right? And I've seen individuals that have stayed in it for 10, 15 years, depending on what that line of business is. When I set up Elite Global Recruiters, that was a time where I chose to step out of the day-to-day on the PSI side. But I'd been building up to that since before the lockdown, right? So that's taken me nearly 3 years and to be honest, I'm not stepped out of it 100%. And actually, I want to clarify something here. I don't think an owner should be stepping out 100%. I think, obviously, it's going to depend on the size of the business, but if you are going to bring in a COO or something, an individual at that level, yes, you're stepping out of the day-to-day stuff, but remember, it's still your baby, still your vision. You still need to be in the business at times. Because not only that, one of the things I keep hearing right now from branch managers, desk level people, where their companies are trying to train them, not through me, I should add here, the training is old school. The individuals haven't ran a desk recently, or they have not done a startup recently, or certainly since COVID, right? So that's the other reason why I think it's important that every founder does keep their finger on the pulse in the office, in the business, beg your pardon, and they don't walk away completely. Now, you could now be where you're doing, a couple of 100 million. Well, that's different, right? That's a different story. But it also depends, as I said, on the foundations. Have you built solid foundations, or are you leaving a hot mess for somebody else to take over? Because if you're in that situation, you're looking to exit the business or step away from it, and it's a complete mess over here, I promise you're going to get dragged back into that business because it wasn't ready to be handed over. I get dragged back into the PSI business. Probably I'll jump on a regroup call. I try and jump on once or twice a week just to hear what's happening, if there's something I need to do, and just keep on top of that. There's times when, as I've been traveling, I didn't jump on a single call, but everybody had access to me, right? So the answer is there's never a good time to step back. Is you've got to look at what are you leaving behind. If it's a hot mess, you've got your answer, right? Well, sure, you've got your answer, right? Because that's what's going to happen is somebody's going to come in and it's just going to be chaos and you're going to get dragged back in. Actually, the other piece I should add to that, are you really ready to step back from it? Because it is your baby. A lot of people think they still want to step back from it. I've got clients where they've been brought in as CEOs and the chairman is still wants to be on every major decision, every email and stuff like that. Individuals like, if that's what you would want, then I question whether you're ready to step back or not. Long-winded answer, not a direct answer.
No, but good food for thought. Thank you. And we did promise that we would throw something in as well to help the corporate recruiters on the call. So what would be some advice you would give to corporate recruiters who are working with external recruitment agencies? How can they, develop that relationship and make that relationship more effective for them? What could they do differently? What are some of the mistakes that you see corporates making when they're trying to work with recruitment partners? Any particular insights you would share there?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I talk to corporate recruiters all the time, so this is an ongoing issue. It's like internally, right? Sales blaming delivery, right? It's the same type of issue. One of the things from a corporate recruiter's perspective that a mistake I see them making, they don't actually, I'm going to come at this from two angles, if you don't mind. First of all, from the corporate recruiters and from the agency perspective, because it'd be unfair of me to just say it's all corporate recruiting. They don't build relationships. They want to do everything themselves and then throw something at a couple of agencies just to stop them from headhunting their internal candidates, right? And time in. We see through that, and that just doesn't work, right? So stop doing that. Secondly, look at your fees. If you really want a true partnership and you want to attract the right talent for your business, the right talent is going to be working with now we all have our cowboys, right? As does the agency world. I'm not denying that at all. But filter through, build those relationships, and then pay them market value, pay the fees. because like your company, they're also running an agency, running a business. And you may get somebody to agree to 15% fee, 12% fee, or whatever the case might be. If you're giving them that 12% fee and they've got a client over there, a direct competitor paying market value 25%, where do you think their energy as a business is going to go to? Right? The other thing, I say this to all my agency clients, when you're negotiating terms, and I have this as part of our onboarding, when you're negotiating terms with a client, clarify at that stage, get it written into the contract. What happens when you activate a candidate that's in their database? What is going to be the rule of thumb around that? That's going to vary from company to company, but get that. So corporate recruiters, have that conversation. If the recruiter has not brought that up, bring that up as part of your selection process. Right? Now to go to us. Let's look at internally. What are some of the things we need to change up in how we are working? As I said, when you're negotiating, make sure you've clarified how you're going to handle candidates that you've worked really hard to activate, and then company says they're in our database and we spoke to them last decade or something, right? It's ours. So get that in there. Secondly, if you want to command the higher fees, you've got to demonstrate your value, and just firing CVs at them. And even in the sales process, just sending them email after email about how amazing your service is and how you have the solution to their problem. They should do business with you. How do you know their problem? Have you actually spoken to them? You're making an assumption. You know, what you're doing is you're pretty much doing what your competitors are doing, right? And when there's no difference, there's only one difference, and that's price, right? And then quite rightly, the company says, well, you're both giving me the same level of crappy service, who's going to give me it cheaper? So get your value proposition right. And one of the things I do want to add here is when you're headhunting candidates and the candidates agree to talk to you, listen. Don't go straight into that call saying, right, you applied for some reason I'm picking on accountants today. I reached out to you about this job, and they just do a verbal dump of the job and then start asking them, well, what's your salary? What's this? What's that? You reached out to them. Flick the script. What is it that they would want to move for? Right? You'll be surprised. I was actually on a call last week, I think it was, and I actually sat in on a call for somebody that on the coaching side, and it took 2 minutes, or may have been 3 minutes, before the candidate was allowed to speak, had an opportunity to speak. So I know you asked for the corporate recruiter piece. I've given you that bit. I've given you the agency part and a freebie for the candidate part. I forgot I wasn't going to take this over, and I did.
Well, so in all seriousness, it's been a really interesting conversation today. Thank you for all the insights you've shared. Is there anything that you were hoping we would touch on today that we haven't got around to talking about? Anything else you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I've had many people reaching out to me since the book launch about how I've built my brand and how I've leveraged the power of LinkedIn. Now, disclaimer, I am not a marketing girl. That is not what I am. I can only speak from my experience. So what I've literally just done, and it launches next week. I just had to quickly check the wall. It launches next week. I've actually put it into a course. I've actually put it into a standalone course that you can buy, and my strategies are in there. I've shared everything that I've done, and you're welcome to take my strategies and adapt them to your business, your sector. So look out for that. It'll be out next week.
Terrific. Well, On behalf of everyone on the call today, Suky, thanks so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed reversing the roles and being on the receiving end of the questions for once.
It's actually quite difficult, isn't it?
But I guess for the next section, we'll get back to normal service, and you'll be chatting to another recruitment leader. So for all those of you on the call, you'll get through the details of that session nearer the time, and reminder of how to join that one. But yeah, thank you, Suky, for today, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you so much. Take care.